Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about the brand new multi-chrome shades from Terra. I'm so excited to be filming this video. I'm always really excited about new Terra eyeshadows. You know I love anything shifty, shiny, and sparkly, and so here they are. There's 14 shades total, and Terra is really known for some really unique types of multi-chromes. They do have some that are kind of found among other brands as well, but for the most part they really have some super unique mixtures of multi-chromes. So Terra has a couple of different textures of eyeshadows. They have some really smooth silky ones like the black based multi-chromes, and they also have some that are just really smooth, but they're not necessarily like silky, but they're still really smooth. And then some of their more recent shadows within the past year are slightly flakier and chunkier, and there's kind of different levels to like how chunky and how flaky, and you can kind of tell from just looking at the pans usually too. And thank you so much to Terra for sending me all the shadows. I also have a non-affiliate code with Terra in case you're interested, and it is Millie15. I will also put it up on the screen. So these new shades do feature both the smoother formula and the also like chunkier, more like the Cosmos formula. If you're familiar with that shade and you have that shade, that one is very flaky. You definitely need a toothier kind of flat brush to pick those up and put those down. And of course I'm going to be showing you some swatch comparisons between the new shades as well as some older Terra shades as well as a couple of other brands, and then I'll be showing you 4 looks with as many shadows as possible. And full disclosure, the photos themselves of the looks are sponsored by Terra, but this video isn't. I decided on my own accord to film the 4 looks. So let's get right into it. With the Beauty Bay eyeshadow primer in white. I'm using Terraverse from Terra. I'm just going to be putting that into the inner third of my crease. I believe this is one of the neon shades, or maybe it's one of the pastels. It looks pretty vibrant. It's probably one of the neons. And I'm going to use another shade to help blend that out. These are definitely best just kind of packed. So like that. And then next to that I'm going to put Lunar Haze, just right in the center. Just a little bit more in here as well. And then I'm going in with Royal on the outer corner to deepen that up. I'm just gonna be kind of pressing that in, and then I'm gonna use the light purple to blend out the edges of that. And just blending it out. Putting down some NYX glitter primer because some of the shades seem a little bit flaky. So I just want to make sure I can really stick them down. So taking Lost in Space, and that's going to go along my lash line almost. I feel like this brush isn't really picking it up. I think it's going to need something a little bit toothier. And then above that, I'm taking Hyperbolide. And whoa, that is so pretty. This one is definitely flaky. You can kind of see it on the brush. Wow. This looks like a pastel space. I'm gonna go back in with a little bit more of the other shade. And I'm gonna put just a tiny bit of NYX glitter primer on the inner corner, and I'm gonna use Stellar Apotheos as my inner corner highlight. This one also is a little bit on the flaky side. Ooh, that has a lot more of like a teal base to it than I was kind of expecting. Here's the first finished look. I'm primed with a Beauty Bay eyeshadow primer, and into the crease I'm going in with Jupiter and Eye. I just want like a lighter-ish wash of this. Well, it's pretty neon, but just want to kind of blend it out a bit. Taking the Unearthly Cosmetics gel liner in the shade Ruby, and I'm using the Samantha and Sigma collab brush, the wing liner brush. I believe this is their standard brush, even though the ones that I have look different, because I have two of these brushes and they do have a slightly different shape than this one, so it looks like they must have changed it, which is fine. I think this one works great as well. I'm just creating an eyeshadow wing with that. And I'm taking a tiny bit of NYX glitter primer, and I'm gonna do like a fake half crease almost. And just tapping it out. I did smudge here a little bit, but it should be fine. It's gonna get covered by the eyeshadow. So I'm going in with, I don't know how to pronounce this, Muy Set Fei, something like that, and this one is chunky. I'm just gonna try to really spread it out so it smooths out. Oh, that is so magical. Oh, look at that, so pretty. This would be a fun one to layer as well. Just gonna bring it like down to the liner, but try not to put it over the liner. And then taking the same brush and a little bit of the NYX glitter primer, and I'm gonna put it on the wing, going in with Star Flare and just layering that on top. And this one I'm gonna maybe smudge just a little bit. Using my pinky, I'm gonna be using Solar Delirium as my inner corner highlight. Just a tiny bit. So that is a little bit more pigmented than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be a little bit more translucent, but that's what I get for not swatching things first. Here's the second finished look. Priming with the Beauty Bay primer. Going in with Just a Face from Terra, and it's going to go on half of my lid and just a little bit into my crease. And then taking Spacebound on the other half And again, putting it on my lid and into my crease. I don't really want to blend these two together, obviously, but if I layer them just a little bit, it will be fine since I'm putting a shimmer over it anyways. Taking that pink underneath my lower lash line to connect. And then I'm taking the blue under the other half of my lower lash line. Taking some NYX glitter primer, and I'm gonna pretty much put it all over the lid. I'm taking Perihelion, and that's gonna go all over. Oh, that is such a beautiful shade. Oh my goodness. It has a pink reflex, so that's why I thought it would be nice to combine with this pink. And it does have a little bit of a teal base, so you can kind of see it layering over the pink a little bit strangely, but the shine is so good. And I'm taking Ganymede. I'm going to use as my inner corner highlight because this one, while it's very similar to this shade on the lid, it's a little bit more translucent and it has a stronger reddish shift to it. I think you can kind of see this one's a little bit more, I mean, it's similar tone, but it's softer and maybe a little bit more pink, while this one is red, basically. Here's the third finished look. Priming with the Gimme Glow primer. Taking Palm Reader from Terra. We're going to have a little bit of a millennial pinks moment here, like the Melt palette. Going to be pairing this beautiful pink with a dark blue, like a denim blue. And that's just going to go right here. I'm going to kind of stop it right there. And then taking Arabian Nights onto the outer portion of my lid. And I'm just going to blend it into the pink just the tiniest bit. I don't really want to do too much. And then I'm just going to start feathering it out. Any edges right here. Come back in with just a little bit more. I'm going to take a small clean brush and just use that so that there's nothing else to blend out. I'm just blending whatever's already on my lid instead of what is kind of stuck in the fibers. Ooh, I really love this color combination. Pretty colors together. And then I'm going to extend Arabian Nights underneath my lower lash line, and I'm not going to take it too far, just a little bit, about like halfway. And then putting down some NYX glitter primer. I'm going to do kind of like a half cut crease, a little bit up there. Picked up Neptune's Diamonds, and that's going to go right here in the center of my lid and a little bit along my lash line. Just kind of tapping it on in there first. And then on the same brush, I picked up Atomic Division. I'm just going to pop that right above. The reason I paired it with this pink is because it has a pink shift in it. But I'm not sure if it's going to be that prominent. Picked up some glitter primer, and I'm going to put it underneath my lower lash line just to prep it. I'm taking Atomic Division underneath. Ooh, I love it down there. Here's the fourth finished look. All right, let's get right into it. Do you need all these shadows? No. Obviously, nobody needs 14 new shadows. That's just a lot. I really think it's going to come down to looking at swatches and thinking about your own collection, what you have in your collection and what you don't have, what you're missing, and colors that you like to wear and you see yourself wearing a lot, as well as textures. Definitely, it is a huge thing to consider. If you don't like chunkier shadows, then automatically you're probably not going to want like most of these. The smoothest shadows out of all of these are the shade Atomic Division and also Neptune's Diamonds. They're the smoothest. I think Lost in Space is kind of like the smallest chunkiness, and then the rest of them are pretty chunky, again varying a little bit in just kind of like how chunky and flaky they are. There are also a couple shades which you might have already noticed from actually the swatches that look very similar. I actually, when I first got them and I opened them and I was looking at them, I thought that I got mislabeled shadows because they looked identical, and those two are Aurora Australis and then Martian Dust. Those two are so similar. You definitely do not need both of them. I think they're almost too similar, so I would definitely not use these on the lid at the same time. I think they're going to end up looking pretty much the same. And then the other shade is Perihelion, and then Ganymede. The main difference between them is that Perihelion does have a more of a teal base, so it's a little bit stronger of a base, and the shift is a little bit different, while the other shade is a little bit more translucent. I would also say that it is a little bit chunkier, and it has a very strong shift. I think they're both so beautiful, so unique. I love them, but I don't think you need both of them. I would just pick one or the other. I do think that the shift in these two shades up here is a little bit more subtle. It was a bit harder for me to capture and to really see it compared to some of these other shades where there's just higher contrast in these shifts, so it's just really apparent. These three shades up here, I would say, have a little bit of a darker base to them. They're not necessarily black base because they are on the chunky side, but there is somewhat of like a grayish base when you really like build them up, or if you were to blend them out, you could see it. The rest of them are just really beautiful, colorful multi-chromes with varying bases, so some of them are a little stronger than others, and of course a glitter primer or some sort of a tacky base that dries down will be very helpful if you really want the opacity. And if you don't, if you really want them to be sheer, then you can just go in with your finger. I would definitely recommend using a tacky primer because they are chunky in a sense that they almost kind of like separate as you're swatching them. If you have the Cosmos, then I think you know what I might be talking about. They are really shiny and sparkly and just dimensional even without it, but for that extra oomph. The other thing I wanted to mention, which I've touched upon before, is with something a little chunky like this, you do want to go in with a lighter hand. Unless you don't mind skin texture accentuation, then totally disregard that. But if you don't want any skin texture accentuation, you gotta go in with a lighter hand because these can look a little bit textured on the lid pretty easily if you use too much. I have Ganymede all over their lids right now. I was actually trying to film this as a reel, but I ended up putting the eyeshadow on just out of like habit without filming it, so it was too late. But I'm glad I got to see this shadow all over the lid paired with some other kinds of shadows. It definitely looks very like orangey red, even though it's paired with green and yellow. Like I see a lot of red even when it's layered over the green. And that's something that I also really love about these kinds of shades that have a little bit more lighter base. They're just so much fun to layer on top of different colorful mattes. All right, onto my top recommendations. This is going to be very much based on my preference and what I like, so keep that in mind. You know, take it with a grain of salt. My recommendations, of course, if you don't like purple and I recommended purple, don't buy a purple. One of these two shades, so between Ganymede and Perihelion, some of these names are just make it a little hard. There's only 3 shades, I think, out of these 14 that I was really able to dupe out pretty closely, so keeping that in mind. If you have something, you know, that already dupes this shade, then obviously not this one. And then Stellar Apotheosis, I think, are definitely standouts. Also love Cosmic Collision because this one is very similar to Cornflower from Glam, as well as Xenon from Gimme Glow. And then I absolutely love Solar Delirium because it is just so bright. It's almost neon. And I do like these other shades, but if I'm really being picky, these are kind of my top recommendations. But of course, take it with a grain of salt. Let me know in the comments below which of these shadows is your favorite. Do you plan on picking any of these up? They're launching today, July 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So definitely get your list ready. And I do have quite a bit of Terra Moon's videos that you can also watch. I will put them right here. And thank you so much for watching.